Hey folks, Crimson Blaze here. Welcome to another hammock camping video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the two most popular types of hammocks for hammock camping. That's the gathered in hammock and the bridge hammock. I'm going to be talking about the differences between the two, and hopefully this will help you figure out which one works best for you. Let's first begin by talking about what is a gathered in hammock and bridge hammock. So here on the left is an example of a gathered in hammock. And this is what you'll most likely see out on the trail and when you're shopping for a hammock. And it's called a gathered in hammock because the end of the hammock is gathered in and it's held together by this continuous loop. And that continuous loop is what hooks onto the end of your hammock suspension. All right, so you have both ends of your hammock, again, gathered in, continuous loop, hooked onto your suspension. Whereas for a bridge hammock, the ends are not gathered. Instead, you have these spreader bars, which are going to spread out the head of your hammock as well as the foot. And the connection is a little bit different. You don't have a continuous loop. Instead, I have this little carabiner, which is hooking on to the end of my hammock suspension here. So this is what they call a bridge hammock. It's not quite as common as the gathered in hammock, but it is still an excellent choice for hammock camping. So now let's talk about some of the differences between these two hammocks. Let's first compare the weight between these two hammocks. So this is the Dutch Chameleon, and if you take off the underquilt, which is zipped on, and you take off the side sling, then the body of the hammock with its integrated bug net is going to weigh around 11.5 ounces. And I think that's pretty comparable to other hammocks that are that size that has an integrated bug net, which is pretty good. That's pretty lightweight. Whereas the bridge hammock, it weighs around 20.5 ounces. And this is the Dutch Banya bridge hammock. And again, I think other bridge hammocks are probably going to be fairly comparable to this one, but you'll notice the bridge hammock is almost twice as much as the gathered in hammock. So if weight is your main consideration for picking out a hammock, then the gathered in hammock is your best option. The next thing I want to compare is comfortability. And I'm going to break this up into two different categories. One is sleeping and the other is lounging. Well, when it comes to sleeping, there's no contest. It's the bridge hammock. And that's because the main factor for being able to sleep comfortably in a hammock is laying flat. And because of its design and its spreader bars, those spreader bars are spreading out the hammock and you will always have a flat lay. So even though this may be heavy, I get my best night's sleep in a bridge hammock. No contest. You know, there's no trying to fiddle around with it. You're going to always get a flat lay. Whereas for a gathered in hammock, it's comfortable. I'm not saying it's uncomfortable. It's just not as comfortable as the bridge hammock. Because in order to achieve a flat lay in a gathered in hammock, one, you need to buy an asymmetrical hammock. That's going to help you sleep better. Two, I'd recommend a wide version if you can get it. Because what you need to do is you have to sleep at an angle, right? In order to sleep at that angle, that's what's going to allow you to achieve that flat lay. And if you're not laying flat, then you're not going to sleep comfortable. And that flat lay really depends on how high you hang your hammock suspensions. How tight is your hammock suspension? How high is the hammock off the ground? How tight or loose do you like it? You know, it's very much a preference thing. So there's a lot of figuring stuff out in order to be able to achieve that flat lay in a gathered in hammock. But once you have it dialed in, it's pretty comfortable. I'm able to sleep flat in this gathered in hammock and I sleep great on the trail. But if we're talking about overall comfortability, sleeping at night, it's the bridge hammock. Now I mentioned two categories for comfortability. The first was sleeping and the next was lounging. And to me, being able to lounge at camp is one of the best aspects about hammock camping. And for that, I think the gathered in hammock wins that one. So I'll try to do this with one hand, but when I sit in my gathered in hammock, it's more like a chair for me. It's extremely comfortable. My feet are flat on the ground and it is very comfortable. But what I like best is pulling back my bug net and then just leaning back and relaxing. And this is the best, be able to have kind of that backstop where I can just really lean back and enjoy my hammock, enjoy my campsite. I got my feet off the ground and man, it is just the best. If you've hiked 10, 15, 20 miles and you get into camp, man, this is better than a chair because you're up off the ground, your feet are up, and it's just awesome. It is, it's just really great. So that's the gathered in hammock. Now the bridge hammock, it's a little different. And a lot of it is because of the design of the bridge hammock, where it has 2 ridge lines instead of just the one. And these 2 ridge lines are kind of built into my bug net, which makes it a little harder. So I can sit in it, and again, it's not uncomfortable, right? But I have this ridge line and it's just kind of digging in the back of my neck. So it's not the greatest. So what I'll do then is I'll put my head in between both ridge lines. That's okay, but I'm not really lounging yet. I'm just kind of sitting and looking up around my campsite. So I'll try to, put my head back and then I try to lounge a little bit. I'm not really lounging like I was in the other one. And it's okay. Again, it's not uncomfortable. It's definitely better than just sitting on the ground in a tent. But I think because of the design of this bridge hammock, you see I've got this bug net and it's kind of, built onto my ridge line. So it makes it harder for me to kind of flip back that. Now I could totally remove that bug net, but it just becomes a hassle trying to take it on and off. But you can definitely do that. So when it comes to comfortability, I do think the bridge hammock is best for sleeping. I get my best night's sleep out of that. But when it comes to lounging, I think the gathered in hammock is your best option. The next thing I want to compare between these 2 hammocks is the open view when you're laying in your hammock. Now I'm in my gathered hammock and I am laying at an angle so I can achieve my flat lay. And what you'll notice is like on one side, it's wide open, right? Where my shoulder's at, it's wide open. I can see the ground below me and I can see all of my camp that it's around me. So that's great. But on the other side, because I'm laying at an angle, because this is an asymmetrical hammock, I now have this fabric in front of me and I can't see right there. Now I can see the sky, right? I can see the trees, but I can't see the ground anymore. I can't see out on the horizon. And I've heard some people say that sleeping in a gathered in hammock is like sleeping in a burrito or a taco or something like that, which is fair, right? Because the walls begin to wrap up around you, and it does. It limits your view when you're laying in your hammock. And to me, that's a big aspect of hammock camping. When I'm laying in my hammock, I want to see my campsite. I want to see that mountain view or desert view or whatever it is. I want to see the sunset. And if I can lay in my hammock and do that, man, that is just the best. But the gathered in hammock only has so much openness depending on how you're laying in your hammock. But now let's see how open the bridge hammock is. You will notice that I am now in my bridge hammock with my nice true flat lay. And what you'll also notice is the openness of a bridge hammock. So when I look out on either side, I have wide open views, and that's great. So that will help with, those who may feel claustrophobic, but I love being able to see my entire camp from just laying here. I can see out through my feet as well as I can see behind me too, So it's almost 360-degree views that you have when you're in a bridge hammock. So when it comes to openness and not feeling so claustrophobic, the bridge hammock is going to be your best option. Now let's look at the cost difference between these two hammocks. So the Dutch Banya bridge hammock costs around $220. And that includes the integrated bug net, the spreader bars, the hammock itself. And I haven't priced out other bridge hammocks, but I would say that is fairly comparable. Whereas a gathered in hammock, those can range between $100 and $155. So the Dutch Chameleon here with the integrated bug net and just the body costs around $155. And again, I think that is pretty comparable to an asymmetrical hammock that's 11 feet long, that has an integrated bug net. That's probably what you're going to find. So if cost is your biggest consideration, then the gathered in hammock is going to be your best option. The final thing I want to talk about is the insulation that goes underneath you and how that compares between these two hammocks. So as you can see here, the Dutch Chameleon, I have an underquilt that is zipped on, which is a great feature that Dutch has on his Chameleon hammock. Because what it does, it kind of eliminates all that cordage that you have to bring up here and loosen and tie. It's already on there. All I have to do is close this little gap and it works great. So I love having that option of putting that underquilt and having it zipped on. Now Superior Gear makes a gathered in hammock where the underquilt is sewn on, which is also a good option. So I would go with either one of those. Because it just makes life so much easier when you get to camp and you're not having to fiddle around with an underquilt. Now you can also put a sleeping pad in there, but I think the underquilt works best in a gathered in hammock. As far as the bridge hammock, I think the sleeping pad is a great option because as you can see, it's flat, right? The pad is not going to slip around as you're laying in it. So that is extremely helpful. So this past year, I've been using the Dutch bridge hammock here, and it's worked great. And I've used my Nemo Tensor insulated pad, and that has worked great. But recently, on a past couple trips, including my trip out to the Indian Peaks Wilderness, I put an underquilt on here, right? And it worked just great. And I would just attach it to the ends here, and it worked really well. Now Dutch makes an underquilt that fits this, but my standard underquilt works just fine with this bridge hammock, so I didn't have to buy anything additional. But I would say a sleeping pad is a great option for the bridge hammock, and it's going to work best with this option. Now there are a lot of great hammock vendors out there where you can buy a gathered in hammock or a bridge hammock. As you can see, I am very fond of Dutch and his hammocks because they're so customizable. I can buy a lot of accessories where I can zip on and off, whether it's a bug net or a side sling or an underquilt or whatever it is. I just really love Dutch hammocks. But there's a lot of other good vendors out there as well. There's Superior Gear, Hennessy Hammock, Dream, War Bonnet, Hammock Gear, all of them where you can buy quality hammocks out there for a hammock camping trip. Well, that's going to do it for this video. And those are the main differences between a gathered in hammock and a bridge hammock. And really, you're not going to go wrong with either choice. Both are great options for hammock camping. It's really going to come down to preference and what works best for you. All right, folks, thanks for watching. Until my next adventure, keep on blazing.